it possible to have even greater secrets? What if the flood had happened 190 years ago, and the world was culturally and technologically more advanced before? If the history taught in schools was a fraud, entirely invented by a group of people, had the Indo-European languages been artificially created to divide men, when the groups conquered the Great Lands, if Hyperborea, in the Arctic Circle were the lands of our great divine ancestors that had coexisted in the Middle Ages, with all other great civilizations and formed a single harmonious culture, with the same language and DNA, though they have gone down in history with dozens of invented names by Jesuit historians. What if the Wall of China had been built under the rule of Mao Zedong, and the pyramids of Egypt were no more than 221 years old? Had the Acropolis of Athens been erected in the 19th century by French architects under Catherine II? What if there were no ancient Greece or Rome? Had the Bibles been written in the 19th century after the Great Flood to falsify history? If the New Testament had been written before the Old? And this was medieval Russia's account of the 13th, 17th centuries, if the Britain's history had been stolen from Tartarian history so that the insignificant island would acquire the brilliance it never possessed? If King George VI of England was the dead Prince Albert Victor and Tsar Nicholas to have rushed fled to London after being assassinated by the Bolsheviks? If the 40 years of Moses in the wilderness were in fact the years in which treasures subordinate to the Tartar Slavic Aryan rulers were confined as punishment for the usury and robbery crimes they committed during the Great Tartarian Empire? If this group of people were the inventors of every religion of God, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and all world religions in the name of God, and if Mithraism is very much alive among the Anglo-Dutch elite, if these imperial financial agents had rebelled again and decided to create countries, mafias, and monarchies where they could reign and enslave the rest of the world, calling themselves enlightened ones, elected ones, or the chosen ones, if the Middle Ages were the apogee of advanced Tartarian culture whose traits were systematically erased by the German Calvinist Romanov usurpers, if the Church had created a wrong solar system theory and led the wars of the so-called Reformation, if the false Colosseum of the city of Rome had been built by Pope Pius VII in 1807, according to the plaque on the site, the true Colosseum was in Istanbul, the city initially called yours Jerusalem, Troy, and Constantinople, and the true Rome. What if the walls of the Jerusalem of the Bible were the walls of the Kremlin erected in Moscow in the 16th century? If Solomon's temple is the Hagia Sophia Basilica in Istanbul, what if Einstein was faked to conceal the failure of the Michelson-Morley experiment in 1887 Evolus? Churches and cathedral domes were towers and power stations for the transmission of clean, free, and wireless energy, later endowed with crosses to conceal the original purpose. And if Russian palaces were illuminated in 1750 with energy extracted from the atmosphere, more than 100 years before the fraud called Thomas Edison created by magnates like J.P. Morgan to deprive mankind of free energy and erect monopolies with profits. And if J.P. Morgan was a Rockefeller and Nikola Tesla, a ghost that never existed, if all worldwide skyscrapers are collectors and store atmospheric energy for the benefit of few, what if this highly advanced universal civilization had been destroyed by this group between 1780